Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on Stargirl Season 2, and this is going to be my review for Episode 7 for this season, the halfway point exactly for this season, otherwise entitled Summer School Chapter 7. But of course, if you don't watch the episode, go away, because we're going to be talking about everything that happened in this episode, and it was a big episode in regards to the foundations and the structure of the JSA on the show, or the new JSA, so it's a big one. But of course, if you haven't watched the episode, you are continuing on. Be sure to let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions, thoughts, theories, if you have them going forward in regards to what happened in this episode and what was set up going forward. I'm very curious to read what you guys might have to say. And just let me know your, rating for the episode as well. And of course, if you want to enjoy the video and you enjoyed the episode, want to drop a like on the video to show all that. So last episode was easily the biggest episode of the season, and we had Eclipso returning, if not just making his physical debut on the show. He injured the Shade heavily. Isaac Bowen is killed and eaten by Eclipso. Cindy Berman is sent to God knows where. Well, I guess Eclipso knows where. I guess it should be. But Eclipso also disguises himself as young Bruce Gordon, the even creepier version of Eclipso, in my opinion. Does it right at the end of the episode. And of course, we saw that version in the opening scene of this season in episode 1. So that continues into this episode, but yeah, last episode was off its head. Now this episode, episode 7, Summer School Chapter 7, was just jam-packed full of emotion. And though what I thought was going to happen in this episode for the most part did happen in regards to Yolanda as a character, just the heaviness to it was unexpected. And I think Yvette Monreal, who plays Yolanda, killed it in this episode. And of course, it was cool to see some familiar faces return for this episode from last season. But yeah, just a massive episode. I was going to say big, but I guess massive episode for Yolanda and Wildcat as a character on the show. So yeah, let's talk about it. But we start off the episode with Yolanda in the confessional booth, or the confession booth, speaking to her priest, similar to episode 1 or 2. I can't remember which episode it was. I think it was 1 or 2. But this time she speaks, while last time she was just sitting there in silence. Now she's asking the priest about the existence of the devil after her encounter, or the JSA's encounter with Eclipso last episode, with Yolanda even asking if she's able to be forgiven for killing, even if the person or thing she kills is truly evil. And of course, the whole thing on her mind is, obviously she killed Brainwave last season, but of course the thought of having to kill Eclipso as well. And at this point, she's suffering visions similar to earlier in the season, but they're just much more intense this time around because of all the build up and just everything that's going on in her life and going on within her head. Now we do cut to July 3rd, where Blue Valley is preparing for the 4th of July celebration, so yeah, America. But the weather in Blue Valley isn't very summer-like, which it should be on the 4th of July. Obviously, this is due to Eclipso's presence in the town, and we are reminded of Isaac Bowen due to that missing persons poster. Now, nothing has happened involving Eclipso since the encounter at Blue Valley High, with Courtney believing both Isaac and Cindy to be dead, as well as the Shade potentially being dead as well. Though we know that the Shade is just injured, and that continues on in this episode. We'll talk about that in a second. And also, we didn't see Cindy Berman or Shiv die. She was just taken somewhere. She might be dead, but we didn't see her get her head chopped off. We saw her absorbed somewhere. So let's see if we cut back to that this season. Now, in regards to the Shade, we do have Barbara at work at the American Dream, and the American Dream is going through some financial troubles, but Barbara makes a good enough case to not do any damage to what the American Dream has done with smaller towns in the past, and just sort of try to work on it and, clear out some backlog, and hopefully that can produce some sort of cash flow within the organization. But this is when the Shade tries to make contact with Barbara. He is weak, he is bleeding, but that's all we really get in this episode. So I'm assuming next week or the episode after they'll dive into that, but maybe he's trapped, and maybe that's where we get maybe he's stuck in the Shadowlands because he can't build a physical form, and then that maybe leads into what's happening with Dr. Midnight and maybe even Cindy as well. So maybe that's where that's leading. That's why they didn't do too much in this episode with that. But I'm curious to see where that goes and how he can recover and become a physical thing again. But most of this stuff is Yolanda related, as you'd expect, based off the setup for the episode and what happens earlier on. So Yolanda is struggling at work with one of her co-workers, I think her name was Maria, helping her out by serving that angry customer we had seen previously. Maria is sort of being that motherly figure to Yolanda, especially in the workplace and stuff like that. But Eclipso influences Maria due to dealing with this angry customer that Yolanda would normally deal with, leading Maria to pour hot coffee all over him. But this is when we see Yolanda meet the young Bruce Gordon in a, well, Eclipso as well, in a very just creepy way. I mean, it's always creepy. Do I even have to say that? But the young Bruce Gordon leaves the diner as quick as he arrived, though he did take a lollipop. And of course, his presence there is the obviously the reason Maria did what she did, with her eye glowing purple as well. And it's just showing Eclipso's influence over the town without any major moments. It's not like someone's, you know, going on a killing spree or something. It's little things like that that you can just show the influence which is the influence over the town and the people within the town. Now, Courtney is approached by Cameron to help out with the 4th of July setup, though she does put her defensive moves on Cameron when approached, which I thought was pretty funny. And though there is stuff going on, with Eclipso and everything like that with the JSA, Courtney decides to join Cameron and put her mind off what is going on at the moment with everything, which I think was actually the smart move, though it potentially does push Yolanda further into this hole that's been going on with her life, which we'll get to, in a second. Now, there is some stuff going on with Mike in this episode, and we'll just quickly put it all in this little portion of the video. So Mike starts training with Pat, or fixing Stripe with Pat. Like, that might be the best way to put it. Now, it's funny that Mike didn't get the wax on, wax off reference. Come on, watch some 80s movies, Mike. Now, obviously, this isn't what Mike thought he would be doing upon, starting the JSA-related work, just doing, like, fixing a robot rather than building one and getting to use it himself. But something does catch his eye in the workshop, and that's the broken shards to the black diamond that Eclipso was trapped in, which when he approaches them, he starts playing with them because they're sort of like magnetized, they're coming back together. But they start to affect Mike as he starts to see leeches crawling over him. But this is just a fear brought on by the diamond shards. Now, I thought it was a bit silly to keep them out in the open. I don't think it's silly to have them, but just to keep them out in the open, I thought it was a bit weird. But Pat is keeping them, as it is the only known weakness of Eclipso's to him. Like, it's the only thing he can think of that Eclipso, could potentially be weak to. And it was last time, so let's just hope it's the same this time around. And whether they can potentially trap him back in it, I don't know if someone has to fix it. I don't know, we'll have to wait and see. Now, Yolanda leaves work, but is hit with more head pains, along with the voice of Brainwave. This is the first time we're getting this, like, new sort of voice coming into Yolanda's head. And though she wants to talk to Courtney, she does see Courtney having a good old time with Cameron, having fun, and decides to not bring her problems into all of that, which has been an issue with Yolanda in the earlier parts of this season. She started to open up to Courtney specifically, and she wants to do it again, but just doesn't want to bring that darkness and that burden from herself onto others. So she goes to the church again, but sees her mother is there this time with the priest. I thought this was going to be a vision, and it wasn't. This was actually like a real thing, so I was like, okay. And though her mother continues to be judgmental and just, let's just be honest, awful to Yolanda, the priest seems like he is going to build some sort of like a bridge of healing between the two, and it seems like her mother is somewhat open to it, but her mother doesn't want to, be the one to instigate it or, start it off, though this is cut short as Yolanda does see Brainwave and bails. Now, we didn't pick up anywhere straight after that. We just pick up at summer school, where Yolanda is being contacted on her phone, with the, like, send me a picture or whatever it was, similar to what we saw in that Wildcat or Yolanda focused episode last season that Henry King Jr. sent her. And this is when she starts to see Henry King Jr. So he's back. While also suffering the head pains again, she does follow him throughout the school, only to find a trail of blood, with that blood coming from Henry King Jr.'s neck. Very similar to how she swiped at him last season, even though it was really Brainwave in disguise, and that's how she killed, Brainwave. And when Yolanda gets to him, he tells her that she never forgave him, which she didn't last season. Henry said sorry to her, saved them, but she never properly forgave him, or at least Henry never, like, in her head, Yolanda forgave him. She was very emotional when he died, but she never said, I forgive you, or, anything like that. She never even showed any sort of forgiveness to Henry before he sacrificed himself last season. And this is when Brainwave approaches her and she snaps out of it, with the entire class looking at her, because I thought it was weird when she initially left the class, no one noticed. So I was like, okay, did the teacher just not care? But no one really looked at her. So I thought that was a vision just from the get-go, but I wasn't too sure. But that thing where she wakes up in class, confirmed that, obviously. Now, following this, Courtney is consoling Yolanda, as a best friend would, and thinking that it must be Eclipso's doing. But as we know, and as Yolanda does say, this has been going on for a while, before Eclipso even showed up in Blue Valley. And Yolanda is just trying to push everyone away, similar to what we saw earlier with when she saw Cameron and Courtney. and she's just not trying to burden anyone else with her issues. But Courtney isn't going to, going to let Yolanda do that. The JSA is a team, and they need to face all these things as a team and deal with all these things as a team. So Yolanda does open up to the JSA, or the rest of them, specifically Rick and Beth, about what she did to Brainwave at the end of last season, with Rick saying he would have done the same. Though Yolanda does question why Rick didn't kill Grundy, and I was thinking the same as well. That same time, I think most of us would have been. And which, we knew that Rick was going, or had the temptation to kill Grundy because Grundy killed his parents, but he backed off on it. Like Yolanda, it's not like Brainwave killed her parents or anything like that. Like Rick probably had more of a reason to want to kill Grundy or get some sort of revenge on killing Grundy. And Grundy is a monster. He's not even really a person, while Brainwave was. So there's a lot of things that like Yolanda would be questioning, that what she did was much worse than even if Rick had killed Grundy. So the rest of the JSA aren't killers, but she is. And once again, it's just feeling more of a burden on having to be the one that has to Eclipso if the time comes, which goes back to that beginning of the episode where she was asking the priest about, even, if you kill something evil, or in that case, she was bringing up the devil, can you be forgiven for doing that killing? And I do find it interesting, and I do actually like that they're bringing that religious aspect into Yolanda's character, because obviously that's an important part to her family, is the religious aspect and the religious part of their lives. So I think bringing into that into her actions as a superhero and a hero, and just as Wildcat, I think is actually pretty smart, and actually adds some sort of baggage, and it just adds to the character in general, and some sort of consequence to it as well. Even though in the case of Yolanda, it's probably the worst person to, that she was the one that killed someone, because the burden is even heavier than if Courtney, Rick, or Beth had done it. But speaking of the religious aspect, Yolanda goes to confession again, but this time Brainwave is on the other side of the booth, blaming her for her son, or for his son's death, with him saying that when he died, he transported himself into Yolanda's mind, brewing up, and I guess brewing up is the best word to use, brewing up that self-loathing within Yolanda's head, with Courtney as Stargirl coming to her aid, only to be overcome by Brainwave, and I guess presumably be killed, and Yolanda turning into Wildcat, killing Brainwave, only for it to actually be his son, Henry King Jr., and we see Henry King Jr. burn up in flames, going to hell, everything like that. But of course, once again, this is all in Yolanda's head, but Courtney is there to snap Yolanda out of it. With Yolanda going on to wish that Courtney, and this is in the real life, this is in the real world, Yolanda wishing that Courtney never brought Wildcat into her life, and Yolanda quitting as Wildcat. And you would think at that time as well, their friendship, with Yolanda's mother even blaming Courtney when Courtney tries to contact her multiple times later on. Yolanda, or maybe it's her mother, also giving up her job at the diner. Who knows if her mother's just controlling her again. So it's just a massive thing for Yolanda, because last season, Wildcat was like this new road for Yolanda to go down. It opened her up. It gave her friends. She wasn't sheltered off anymore, that we'd seen in those opening few episodes. So it was like a new lease on life, but it's also opened up this dark side because of this one action that Yolanda did, and it's just been this massive burden on her. So let's hope Yolanda sees the light in these next few episodes, because I would assume she's going to be Wildcat again, but then again, this show has had so many twists and turns, she might not. Like, I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. But speaking of opening up, Courtney does open up to her family, while also wondering whether it was Eclipso, Brainwave, or just Yolanda in her own head. And we know that was happening before Eclipso came in. So Eclipso obviously might have added some baggage to it all, but he didn't instigate it. And I mean, we know that Brainwave is just a figment of Yolanda's, imagination. So was it just Yolanda in her own head? I think you'd have to say partially yes. But man, like, I know it'd be interesting to see if Yolanda still suffers from all this stuff even after giving up Wildcat. I'm interested to see if she's still suffering at it from, when we meet her either next episode or in episode 10 or whenever she comes back into play. I'm intrigued to see whether she's still suffering from all this stuff. But speaking of bringing up the past, Mike also brings up the icicle situation, and he almost seems to be like second guessing what happened between him and Icicle, at the end of last season when he hit Icicle with his car, or with the car, and shattered him and killed him. And you could just see he was like second guessing himself. Also, like, and just in regards to, like, I guess all the context of what's happening with Yolanda as well. So I'm intrigued to see what happens there. And of course, I don't even know if that interaction with him and the diamond brings out something with Mike. We're going to have to wait and see, but man, Mike just seemed to be second guessing himself there. But to end off the episode, the cliffhanger for the episode, if you want to put it, we have Beth's house at night. Beth's, sleeping, having some dreams. And we see Bruce Gordon, or Eclipso, sucking on that lollipop that Yolanda gave him at the beginning of the episode, just watching Beth's house. Is she the next target, or is this Dr. Midnight related? Either way, the kid is still way too creepy. He does it so well. And even then, I said he was sucking on the lollipop. He wasn't. He was biting in and chewing on that lollipop, which is psycho behavior. Psycho behavior. No forgiveness there. I mean, if that does not prove, if you see a kid chewing on a lollipop like that, ring the cops or ring like some sort of exorcist, one of the two. But yeah, I'm intrigued to see where that goes on, because I think next week is meant to be a Rick-focused episode. But then again, maybe we see some like seeds being planted with whatever that was going on in that end scene between Eclipso and standing outside of Beth's house. So he didn't go in. He was just standing outside. So let's wait and see. But overall, this was a great episode in regards to Yolanda as a character and just diving into just the fallout from the end of last season, which is crazy because we're halfway through the second season and we're dealing with more fallout from the end of last season just now. So dealing with it, and I'm just intrigued to see where we go with Yolanda as a character and just the turnaround that she potentially has. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to find out. But because she was the main focus of the episode, that's all we can really, focus in on. And I think she killed it. I think she killed it. And it was cool to see, as I said earlier in the episode or early in the video, Brainwave and Brainwave Jr. or Henry King Jr. come back into the episode just to focus on this, because it does sort of, you would have to think, put an end to anything relating to them in regards to Yolanda specifically, even though obviously Henry King Jr. won't be ever forgotten by Yolanda, and especially after this moment. So yeah, great episode, and I can't wait to see what happens next, because we're now in the back half of the season, and you have to think things are going to start ramping up pretty quickly in regards to this JSA versus Eclipso stuff, and there's still a lot of things to be answered even before we start diving into the end parts of that story. So can't wait. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on it, show support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions about the episode. What you love, what did you hate, favorite moments. Let me know all that in the comment section down below, as well as like any other opinions, theories, and everything like that. Just let me know. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye.